is broke. They can't pay you what you ladies think you deserve. They can pay you what you're worth, but what you think you're owed, WNBA doesn't have enough money to cover that expense. Mark Cuban very politely, shout out to you, Mark, very politely says these teams in this league, they don't make enough moolah. The league doesn't make enough moolah to pay you guys what you want. Sorry, it's the reality of the situation.
Mark Cuban recently joined the discussion about the Women's National Basketball Association salary negotiations, and his comments shocked a lot of people. He said the league is basically broke, and those 4 words quickly changed the entire conversation. This statement didn't come from a random person online, it came from someone who has spent decades involved in professional sports ownership and understands how the financial side of leagues actually works. Cuban didn't try to soften his message or make it political. Instead, he explained the situation in a very direct way, focusing on the numbers, and according to him, those numbers show a very tough reality for the league.
Rose talk about this, shout out Black and White Sports too. This is happening in the NFL too. Memory serves me correctly. Cam Ward, last year, prior to his final season in Miami, so 2 years ago at this point, declared for the draft. Miami said, hey, we got a big fat bag for you here, more than you would make being a rookie in 2025. Come to Miami, we'll pay you, and then you can go to the pros. Cam Ward said, bet, I don't want to take a pay cut, and I don't want to sit either. I'll come back to college, I'll make a massive amount of money, and I'll play for
The issue started when players from the Women's National Basketball Association asked for 27.5% of the league's total revenue during their new CBA negotiations. They also requested that every player should receive housing paid for by their teams. The league quickly responded that these demands were unrealistic and warned that agreeing to them could cost the league hundreds of millions of dollars. At first, the request might sound fair. In the National Basketball Association, players receive about 50% of the league's revenue. So WNBA players asking for 27.5% seems like only about half of what NBA players get. However, according to critics like Mark Cuban, there is one major problem with this comparison that many people avoid talking about.
On a power conference women's basketball team, $500,000 to $1.2 million. And you're always a free agent with the portal. You get your room and board paid for, and you can get a good education if you work at it. It's all subsidized by donors and shared school revenues, which makes it more similar to Europe, where companies subsidize teams, than to the WNBA. In the NBA, a team can't go to a sponsor and negotiate a direct payment deal for a player. In college, they effectively can with NIL money. When I have written checks to IU, I knew which players were trying to get with the money. Quote, parentheses, although I never tied the money to specific.
Right now, some college athletes are earning more money than rookies in the Women's National Basketball Association. The top women's college basketball players can make between $500,000 and $1.2 million a year through nil deals, while a WNBA rookie usually earns about $76,000. That means some players actually take a pay cut when they turn professional. A similar situation happened in football with Cam Ward, who realized he could earn more money staying in college than he would as a rookie in the National Football League, so he chose to stay. Carson Beck is now facing a similar choice. And this situation is not just affecting average players, it is also happening to some of the biggest stars in college sports.
WNBA teams don't have the margin dollars from tickets, sponsors, and shared revenues like TV to pay bigger salaries using their own cash flow. Own cash flow. Now these players would say, hey, why don't you just dip into some of your Brooklyn Nets cash? Why don't you just dip into some of your Golden State Warriors cash? Why don't you just dip into some of your Portland Trail Blazers?
Mark Cuban suggested an interesting solution to the financial problems in the Women's National Basketball Association. He believes the league should copy the NIL system used in college sports. In this model, teams could work with local sponsors who would make direct payment deals with players. These payments would be legal and separate from the normal team salary. Cuban also suggested setting a limit on how much each player can receive based on their years of experience, so it doesn't damage team finances. He explained that a similar system already works in college sports. For example, when Cuban donates money to Indiana University, he understands which athletes are likely to benefit from those funds. The money isn't officially tied to specific players, but the process is widely understood. Donors support the program, and the program then distributes the money to athletes. Cuban believes the WNBA could use the same type of structure to help increase player earnings without putting too much financial pressure on the league.
Create a cap per player based on years of experience. Yes, some teams will suck at it. That's where the WNBA comes in to help. They will suck at it as well for some period, but like collegiate NIL, the sponsorship packages will supplement player salaries without undermining the economics of the teams and league itself. The next question will be competitive balance issues. The big markets can do this better. They have a great addressable market for sponsors. The WNBA could require that some percentage of the NIL money deals go into a pool for a version.
Mark Cuban also made a very direct point about the finances of the Women's National Basketball Association. He explained that WNBA teams simply don't have enough money coming in from ticket sales, sponsorships, or shared revenue like TV deals to pay much higher salaries from their own cash flow. In other words, the money just isn't there right now. Cuban says this situation isn't about owners being cheap, and it's not about the National Basketball Association refusing to support the league. According to him, it comes down to the basic business model and the amount of revenue the league actually generates. Some players believe owners should use money from their other businesses or NBA teams to pay higher salaries, for example from teams like the Brooklyn Nets, Golden State Warriors, or Los Angeles Lakers. But Cuban's response is very simple: that money belongs to the owners, not to the league or the players. From his perspective, owners shouldn't be expected to use profits from other teams to cover the WNBA's costs.
I'm just spitballing this, but if they came on Shark Tank, that's what I would suggest. What do you think? Well, you know what, Mr. Cuban? For just spitballing this, not mad at it. Yeah, some places will have an advantage, and you can't get around the advantage to a certain degree. But I'm for it. I'm for it. What's the difference between that? Right? Let's say, right? Some places will have.
Mark Cuban also pointed out that some teams in the Women's National Basketball Association would naturally get bigger NIL deals than others. Teams in large cities usually have more sponsors, more corporate partners, and more money available. Because of that difference, Cuban suggested creating a revenue-sharing pool. In this system, a certain percentage of NIL money would go into a shared fund that could then be distributed to smaller market teams so they can still compete financially. This idea is similar to how jersey sponsorships work in many leagues. The true value of a jersey advertisement doesn't only come from local TV or home games, it mainly comes from national TV broadcasts, playoff exposure, and jersey sales. Because of that, some of the money is shared among teams. Cuban believes the WNBA could apply the same idea to player NIL deals, allowing players to earn more money while still keeping financial balance between teams. Honestly, many people think it's actually a pretty reasonable idea.
If true that the league isn't profitable and able to stand on its own, does any of it matter? Just let it fold. It's subpar basketball. Once everyone is done pretending to care about it, it'll fade away naturally. Yikes. Yikes. The big problem is that no one watches women's basketball because the level of competition is so low. Men are so much better at the game. This looks like a woman saying this as well, so I don't want to see anything in the comments. Men are so much better at the game that you're essentially watching middle school level hoops. The game is boring for everyone that doesn't see it as a social cause. Damn! Damn.
But there's another big reality that people don't like to talk about. Some markets already have huge advantages. In the Women's National Basketball Association, players are often willing to take less salary to play in a city like New York City because the endorsement and sponsorship opportunities there are much bigger. There are also situations where players move teams to play with rising stars. For example, Sophie Cunningham reportedly left Phoenix Mercury for the Indiana Fever partly to play alongside Caitlin Clark, whose popularity has exploded. Clark has become one of the biggest names in women's basketball, appearing everywhere in media and sponsorships. Because of that, being close to a superstar or being in a big market can already give players more opportunities outside their salary. Mark Cuban argues that his NIL-style plan would simply make these advantages open and transparent instead of keeping them unofficial and hidden. Players would still benefit from big markets or star teammates, but the system would be clearer and more structured.
WNBA, that they all think they are or should be as big of a draw as the one player in the league who is a bona fide superstar. So they think they are all the reason for the Caitlin Clark effect. Players think the massive bump in attendance and ratings is to see players who don't actually fill the seats or make people watch games. WNBA commissioner thinks it's due to a new mobile app. I'm not making this up. And because of other rookies not named Caitlin Clark who have large social media followings, but again, do not put asses in seats or draw ratings. David Webb, you're cooking here. Other stakeholders want the league and its success to develop according to what they want. A product showcasing Black and LGBTQ, you forgot the plus, women playing a half court, elbows in the paint, 80s NBA physical brand of basketball, instead of embracing the full court, fast-paced, exciting brand of ball that their lone household name has introduced to the league. That actually does bring a bigger audience and fill the seats. Like the video, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below.
Reactions to Mark Cuban's comments show how divided people are about the situation. Some critics say that if the Women's National Basketball Association cannot become profitable on its own, then maybe the league should not continue. One person argued that once people stop pretending to care, interest in the league will fade. That opinion sounds very harsh, but it reflects a view that some fans genuinely hold. Another commenter, a woman, said the main reason many people don't watch women's basketball is because they believe the level of competition is lower compared to men's basketball. She argued that this difference makes the games less exciting for viewers who are not already invested in the sport as a social cause. These comments aren't just random trolling, they represent how some people try to explain the large revenue gap between the WNBA and leagues like the National Basketball Association.